So 5 hours ago, Donald Trump announced on X and Truth Social that the United States had initiated a full-blown military operation against Iran. And this absolutely set the world on fire. It's everywhere on the news, it's everywhere on X. Just log on your phone somewhere, and I'm sure you'll see it. Now, as a result of this chaos, everyone is really wondering here in the stock market, like, is this going to really cause a big crash? VOO and, the Russell 5000, many of them have been kind of sitting a little bit choppy recently, and everyone wondered if some sort of big catalyst or a big event was going to cause it to fall off of an edge. And a lot of people are now wondering if this is that big event. So I wanted to make a quick video for you all going over what happened and kind of break down a little bit as to what's going on in Iran, as to why this occurred, but more specifically focus on, okay, how will this impact the stock market from my own perspective? What am I doing in my own portfolio? Because you guys know I've made this channel to begin with just to kind of update you on what I'm doing in my own portfolio. And then lastly, what I'm looking to in the future, what I'm looking at for the future, because that's truly where everyone should be paying attention to. Everyone's going to get wrapped into paying attention to the right now, but realistically, if you have a stock market portfolio that you're trying to manage during a time like this, you really need to be paying attention to what's in front of us a little bit, because that's where all the real opportunities at. Okay, so I'm going to go over all of that with you all today. So let's not waste any more time at all, and let's get straight into it. So first and foremost, what happened? So again, earlier today, Donald Trump released on X and Truth Social that, we were going to be initiating a full-blown military operation over in Iran. He stated the primary reason being that they wouldn't disband their nuclear program. He said, you guys will never have a nuclear weapon. I've tried to make it clear. I've tried to negotiate. You guys don't want to play ball, so I guess we're just going to have to do this the hard way. It kind of seemed like it was we can do this easy way or the hard way situation, and Iran chose the hard way. Now, he also did state and cite the fact that they have kind of carried out other attacks, whether it be on their own people or on the United States personnel as well within recent years, but the primary focus being, of course, the nuclear situation. Now, I do believe that plays a part in it, and I'm no, politician. I'm not an expert by any means in geopolitics, but what I do know is that when politicians tell you something, there's usually more to it. And I think we can all agree on that. And the reality here is that whenever you consider the fact that Iran is a major oil supplier, they supply oil to China, they also supply oil not on the US dollar, which causes some fragility to the dollar in the region. Their situation with Israel and our tie with Israel, when you consider all of those things, this is much more multi-layered than the government will ever admit. And I guess they don't particularly need to. Maybe they just say, hey, here's our reason, and they don't need to share the other reasons. But again, the reality is that this goes much deeper than just nuclear weapons. I'm sure, again, it's a part of it. But when does the United States ever really get involved with something that doesn't really involve oil? Like, realistically, you know what I mean? And so because of that, again, we just decided that we're just going to carry out an attack on Iran. So that was most of this 8-minute message. He also encouraged the Iranian people to go out and recapture and reclaim their government. He said they'll have an opportunity to. He literally said, stay inside. It's not safe. Stuff's going to be just dropping everywhere. And it was like, imagine hearing that and being there. I mean, it's kind of scary stuff, you know what I mean? But at the end of the day, that is what's going on, and that has caused a big ripple in the market. Now, fortunately for stock market investors, this did happen on a Friday night / Saturday morning. So the stock market's not open right now. So we can track and look and see what futures are doing, but realistically, looking at futures in a moment like this is only going to cause even more emotion. Futures directly after a response to an event like this usually are not an accurate prediction of what's actually going to happen come Monday, because a lot can happen between now and Monday. And that is a part of the reason as to why I believe so many of these moments and instances occur on the weekend, right? Think about the Venezuela situation that we just recently had, and then think about this situation. They always announce it on the weekend to mitigate that sell-off pressure from the stock market, because I think the government knows, right? These things can be scary. The Venezuela situation, for example, it can be scary, especially when it first happens. But the truth is that if you give the market a day or two to absorb that information and kind of gather some more information about, okay, is this going to be contained, or is this going to turn into widespread World War III? Once the market's able to kind of make that determination, then come Monday, it can actually respond properly. And so although that doesn't really feel like a free market to me, that feels a little bit extra corrupt and manipulated, it does seem as if it's maybe not even the wrong thing, because again, it gives the market time to absorb the information it needs to before making a decision that could impact so many people. And so Fortunately slash unfortunately, we have a couple days. Now, I also have a YouTube channel that's a crypto YouTube channel. As you guys, I'm sure, know, crypto is a little bit of a different story. Crypto obviously is a 24/7 market, so that thing is going absolutely nuts right now. But again, for us with our stock market portfolios, we can see obviously that we have a couple days to let this figure out. Now, in my own personal portfolio, we didn't really have any time for the overnight trading to be impacted by this. I was down a little bit already. As you can see here, I was personally down about 0.30% with the portfolio mostly allocated into VOO, down about $1,100 overnight, but I would assume obviously that would be a bit different had this happened a little bit earlier in the day. And so I want to talk a little bit about kind of my response to this. So how do I think this is going to impact the stock market going forward? And then focus a little bit more about what I plan on doing as a response. Okay, so how do I think this is going to impact the market? Well, the truth is that no one really knows. Now, I have an idea of, how this could play out, so I will share that with you, but I do want to preface that by saying no one truly knows. A lot of people are going to come out and they're going to try to tap into your emotions. They're either going to try to fearmonger or they're going to try to just pump copium into your veins. And the reality is that they're simply just doing that because they know that sort of emotion-based content gets a lot of clicks. But the reality is that no one actually knows. Some people are going to say, oh, this is going to be the beginning of World War III. We're going to see everything crash. We're going to see everything just go into oblivion. This is going to be terrible. You need to get out of everything now. And the reason they do that is because, again, they know that gets the most clicks because the emotion that drives investors the most is fear. Excitement is one, yes. Hope is another, yes. But fear is really what can drive an emotion or drive an investor to act faster than anyone else, to click on something faster than anything else. And so naturally, many people are going to tap into that. And on the flip side, people are going to say, well, we've never seen a war break out that didn't lead to the stock market pumping. And realistically, this could be a great thing for stocks. And look, crypto's barely even falling right now. The stock market's going to go sky high. We're going to hit new all-time highs, et cetera, right? But the truth is that no one knows. Go look at how the stock market has responded to every massive event that has happened. And it is usually a little bit different in the long term, but similar in the short term. Let's think of the Gulf War as an example. Let's think of the Iraq War as an example. Let's even use Russia-Ukraine, something more recent as an example. What almost always happens is there is an immediate short-term sell-off, right? Now, the difference here, to kind of immediately start to kind of pick this apart, the difference is that in this situation, this instance, we don't have the ability to have an immediate sell-off. Futures may spike, sure, but we don't have the ability to have an immediate sell-off here simply because we have a couple days before Monday. So that big short-term sell-off that we got from Iraq, from the Gulf War, Russia, Ukraine. I'm trying to think of any more recent examples as well. We may not get that. But generally what happens is the market does this. Okay, immediate sell-off because people de-risk. It's pretty normal, right? People are like, oh my God, we're going to war. I want my cash. It's just what people resort to, right? So we have an immediate sell-off. The emotional investors exit, and then everyone else kind of just holds their breath and goes, and we just see what happens. And that's truly what'll tell you what happens next. So realistically, no, you're not going to know how the market's going to respond to this whole Iran situation until the dominoes start falling in whatever direction they are. Because, for example, remember when Venezuela happened? Not too long ago, a couple of weeks ago, everyone immediately was like, oh my God, we're going to war. And then we all kind of sat back and realized, like, hey, this might be an isolated event. Realistically, this shouldn't get super widespread unless someone just steps fully into another lane and just make some big play at the United States. So realistically, this may not even have a major impact on the world at all, truth be told. And then it didn't. And then the market kind of just went on about it today. Or the Russia-Ukraine situation was a bit different. The Gulf War, a little bit different. Iraq, a little bit different, right? Because some of those actually led to long-term conflicts that brought what? It kind of destabilized those regions, which provided uncertainty to the market, which did end up leading into some more long-term corrections, depending on obviously which one we're talking about. And so the point that I'm trying to get to by saying this is just by saying, listen, it's usually a short-term response, a rapid response, maybe oil spikes right now because everyone's scared. Or maybe not scared, but there's a concern that there may be some sort of lacking of supply in oil because Iran is a major oil producer, and that could cause oil to spike. And if oil spikes, guess what? People might think, oh my God, oil just spiked, inflation's going to go up, people won't have money, people are going to sell their crypto, they're going to sell their stocks, they're going to sell their precious metals, it's like this whole thing, and then people just start freaking out, they start selling stuff, right? So there definitely will be some short-term volatility. But then what happens next will tell us everything we need to know. So instead of focusing on the U.S. just did this to Iran, what I want you more to focus on, and what I personally am going to focus on, is let's see what dominoes fall into next week. because that'll tell us truthfully where this goes. Could the stock market open up somewhat lower over the next, Monday, Tuesday? Maybe so, for sure. But are we going to go, does this confirm that we're going into some big macro downtrend down for years? No. The dominoes that fall after this does or do, right? Because let's say, for example, oil, massive. Let's talk about like one of the worst case scenarios here, right? This completely disrupts all oil production in the region. It starts slowing things down through the strait. I mean, it gets ugly. It also impacts the supply chain because maybe something happens at the strait as well. Like let's just say this caused massive disruption. And as a result of oil prices going up due to a lack of supply and a lack of supply, the price of things just goes boom, straight back up. Inflation shoots straight back up. Things get ugly, things get bad, and people start to freak out. The stock market starts to correct as a result of people being scared of long-term inflation. We start to see, the crypto market also falling, which I'm not going to talk about too much, but that starts falling. I mean, things get really ugly. Yeah, guys, that absolutely could cause some sort of long-term impact on this market where things do start going down. But do you see how there are if-thens still in place? It's not like right now that's going to happen. The market's going to go down for sure. No, it's if this happens, then the market will likely go down. So this whole Iran situation isn't enough, in my opinion, to cause some major cascade. What I believe would likely happen is that the dominoes that fall after this will then be what cause that cascade. And so it's important to not freak out so much right now, but more have your eyes set on what happens going forward, because that will then determine what happens. So watch oil prices. Let's watch 10-year treasury bonds to see how people are responding to their expectations of inflation. Let's watch those things because that'll tell us what we need to do. Then we respond to it. Okay, then we respond to it. So what am I doing right now? Really not much. I mean, I know some people like to make plays. Some plays that some people like to make here, for example, they go to defense stocks, right? Makes perfect sense. If the U.S. is going to war, defense companies will perform generally pretty well. Let's look at Lockheed Martin. Look at how its after hours is performing. It's not terrible. 2.5% yesterday. That's interesting to see it going up in advance of this. Look at Raytheon Technologies as well. Also up about 2.5% just yesterday, right? So these sorts of defense stocks could actually perform pretty well under a circumstance like this. And defense stocks in situations like this do generally perform well anyway. So I'm personally not buying them because it's not my forte. But that could be a play that some people would want to make if that is something that you would, of course, want to get into, right? But personally, my plan is to say, you know what? I'm not going to make any quick moves right now come Monday. What I'm going to do is I'm going to sit back. I'm going to absorb this information, understand, okay, this is what just happened. This is where we are right now. Let's start to identify the certain levels and certain things that we need to pay attention to because that'll tell me what my moves will then be. But realistically, I'm just going to contrarian trade this. In the crypto market, we call it contrarian trading. I'm not quite sure if the stock market uses the same terminology, but it's just simply just going completely against the grain. What I've come to realize is you go look back at all of these other instances in which we've seen geopolitical conflict. One of the best things that you could do is go against the grain. When the market started falling during the Russia-Ukraine situation, one of the best things you could have done throughout that span was invest, right? To go in against the grain when people were worried and people were scared, right? To buy into it. In some of those other instances where the market started just rallying kind of out of nowhere, one of the best things that you could have done is either held through it or took a little bit of profit. Now, personally, I'm not much of someone who takes profit out of my portfolio. I've actually not taken any profit out of this portfolio in the last year. I'm currently up nearly $40,000, and it's just because I've just sat on it. This is a long-term accumulative position for me. It's not like my trading bags in crypto or my options plays in stocks where I'm trying to make a capital gain, a short-term capital cash gain. No, my goal is the long-term. So if we just start pumping, I'm just going to accept it. Like, okay, cool, making some extra, long-term accumulation. But if the market does start falling, I am going to, move as a contrarian and accumulate during that because there is opportunity in the volatility. And that's something that I say all the time on my other channel is like, hey, opportunity spawns in and is birthed during volatility. So don't be scared because the market's getting crazy. Embrace the fact that opportunity is spawned in from it. Think like a market maker. That's how they think, and they make a lot of the most money in the world, right? And so because of that, all in all, the situation does feel a little bit scary. I will say that for sure. You never really want to see war. You never want to see people, dying. It's just not good, man. And I wish it wasn't a thing, but it is a thing. And it's been a thing since all of human history. It's just what happens, right? And so the best thing that you can do as somebody who's not involved with it is be grateful you're not involved with it and you're not somebody who's sitting in these buildings on fire, right? But then secondly, think about this like, okay, how can I respond to this the most reasonably in order to ensure that this is something that's not like a major impact into your own life, right? And so the way that I'm personally doing this is I'm sitting back and I'm watching. I understand that it's scary, but understand we have a couple of days for the market to absorb this information. Keep an eye on oil. Oil will tell you everything you need to know. I actually did see earlier that Gulf exporters had already started boosting shipments because they were concerned that there could be some sort of constraint on oil supply and they don't want that to cause a disruption. So it does seem like as if we are already starting to see some of the Gulf exporters starting to overcorrect in order to compensate for a lacking of oil. So it honestly may not play out super scary, but if oil starts going nuts, that is going to impact the market. It's going to impact bonds and treasuries and everything. And that's going to obviously impact market prices. So I'll keep you updated as this all does play out. And again, I'll keep you updated on what moves I do make within my own portfolio when the time or if the time does come. So if you guys have been enjoying the content, you do feel a little bit more updated after today's video on what you need to be looking for, what you need to be checking out, make sure to check out the channel. Do subscribe. This is a brand new channel. I started it just a few days ago. You could be like my third or fourth subscriber. So welcome onto the channel. I hope you guys did enjoy today's video and I can't wait to see you all in the next one. See you everyone.